Hi everyone, it's Barb. It's Tuesday, which means it's our Tuesday Training Tools Day. I hope everyone's having a good start to your week and staying warm from the snow. um, and yeah, just hope everyone is doing well. And happy February. It's February 1st, which means we're into a new monthly theme in terms of our ongoing learning and development as rock and roll daycare teachers and nannies. So our theme this month for February is observation. Um, and so each week we're going to kind of dive into the importance of observations, what we're seeing, and we're going to switch things up this month a little bit, and we'll talk about that more in the presentation. But first, let's talk about observation and why we do it and why it's important and why we have a whole month dedicated to studying observation. If we think of observation, we think of we're watching the kids. Okay, got it. Check. I do that all day, every day. That's all I'm doing, right? I'm in the classrooms, I'm at home with them. All I'm doing is watching them. So I must observe and I can check this one off and it's all good, right? So absolutely, yes, that is correct. But we want to take it one step further, talk about the importance, why we're doing it, what information it's giving us, and then what we're doing, what are our action items? What are we doing with these observations? Why is it meaningful to our everyday work with children? All right, let's see. How can I move this one over? There we go. So why do we deserve? I mean, why do we observe? Observing gives us all the information, plain and simple. We'll just start there. There is no magic, guidebook that has all the answers to how you work with children in different situations. There's no right or wrong ways to handle different situations or to set up your classroom. Of course, we have to follow different frameworks such as regulations and our philosophy. However, what we base everything off of are our observations. That's why in Montessori and at Rock and Roll Daycare and Rock and Roll Nanny Share, we use the phrase follow the child. And in order to follow the child, we have to observe the child to know what they need or know what they want or know what the environment needs or know what, the class as a whole needs. So it gives us all the information or any question that we may have. Okay. And a lot of questions that will come up are about behaviors, different things we're seeing in the classrooms. And these observations kind of help us, dig and figure out what, these behavioral patterns that we may be seeing with the toddler or, some preschool social interactions that aren't going as peacefully as planned. Our observations can help give us more knowledge and bring to light some questions we may have about those different things to help satisfy those needs and to bring resolution to any of that that's going on within your classrooms or in the home environment. Like I said, there's no one answer to when a child bites, you do this and only this. There's a lot of observation that has to go around that biting behavior before we can say what the appropriate action is to do. And the only way we find that out is through our observations. And in addition, it can help us with our environmental design. Obviously COVID has turned this upside down in terms of what our environments look like and what can be allowed to keep children safe from the virus and teachers safe and anyone in the building safe. However, we can use those observations to say, if we are doing individual shelves for children, based on my observations, I'm going to put this on the shelf for a child versus this, or, so we're whether you're mindful of it or not, all those decisions that you're making throughout the day are based off of what you're seeing. So really, really important that we're making observation, again, very meaningful, and we're being very, very mindful about how we're doing it and how we're sharing it with our team. Observations helps us answer the following questions. What is the child interested in? It's really important that we know what the children are interested in learning or how they learn, so we can make that really big part of our environment, because then they are going to interact with the environment, interact with the materials on the shelves, and they will then be working on their concentration and learning, and everything across the board will be a little more peaceful for the classroom versus if they're not interacting with the environment because they're not interested in anything. The works are too boring, the works are too hard, there isn't enough rotation, whatever it is. If they're not interested in it, they're not going to interact with it. And then that's when, you're going to have some more uh, maybe behavioral things going on in your classroom or in the home environment that you'll be observing. So we want to, our observations tell us, well, if the child's interested in this, we should have it in the environment so they engage with it. And we see that with how they interact with the different works and the new works that we bring in. What skills are the children working on? We have our learning objectives for each, division and classroom of what, the overall goal is, but the overall goal is not to completing every single one of those learning objectives every single day, right? We want that's over a course of their journey in your classroom. But like, are there certain skills that they're more interested in? In child development, and our theme for child development, we talked about those sensitive periods. What are the sensitive periods? What are they super excited about right now? And can I have that in my classroom more? Does the environment meet the needs of the children? It's kind of a tough one to answer now with COVID, because of course, ideally we want, children to be able to interact, and nothing about this virus is is ideal, but are we making the most out of it? Are we saying, okay, we understand the regulations, we want to keep everyone safe, and what's the best environment that we can build to make sure that this is being satisfied? That would be based on your observations as well. And what's the child's intention with the work or activity? I always love to add this question in, because I I've always, when I was in the classroom, I'd be guilty of like coming up with this great idea for a work, being so excited to get it on the shelf, and then I see the children are using it in a way that I did not see as intended. And and at first I used to think of like, oh, that's a failure. Like that work is supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z, and they're not doing it with it. But instead, remember, it's giving you information about where their needs are, where their interests are, and then you can make adjustments to that work to make sure it is meaningful and purposeful for their learning. So always be looking at the child's intention with the work or anything in their environment to help, so you can help properly guide them throughout their day. And a couple techniques with observation to make it, a little more efficient for you. So observation does not have to be time consuming or overly complicated. It should really be simple and natural. We don't have to say, okay, everyone, I'm going to go observe. And like, now I'm going to have my pen and paper and I cannot be, a part of that, because that's so unrealistic to think that, when we are hands-on with, young children, that we can just step back and, take these really detailed notes. Yeah, that would be great, but that's not that's not, the reality of it. So we really want to just be thinking that it's simple and natural, and that taking what you're seeing throughout the day, all day, and writing it down and making it really seamless, and again, meaningful for you, is the ultimate goal. And that's why we had the journals come in, because we really want to have extra support for you of how you're tracking the observations, or how you're tracking just different things throughout the day. So be sure to use those journals and bring them to your meetings with your program specialists or directors to share any observations that you jotted down. You really want to come up with something that's working for you, and how, a system, right, that you feel good about, in terms of just making sure the things that you are seeing are being written down in some way, shape, or form, unless you have like this incredible memory, which if you do, that's amazing. But I have yet to meet a teacher who can remember absolutely everything that goes on in their class all day, every day. So just finding something, okay, I'm taking everything in my classroom and I'm going to be jotting things down when it works for me. So it's nice and simple, and not like this overly time consuming or overly complicated process. And just remember that like the whole point of this is that it can allow us to step back, even though we're not stepping back to sit down with that formal, pen and paper, but, it allows us to just like, when we're thinking about observing and the different techniques, to step back for a second to kind of see how things are going to play out in different situations. So the example I love to give is that you don't always have to drill children with questions to test their knowledge. Can you count this? What shape is this? Observation kind of gives that space. Children will show us what they know. Their discoveries and their knowledge and interests are greater than we think. And sometimes when we don't build in that space of observation to allow it to just naturally come out, we find that we're quizzing a little more, or just, not, just asking like too many questions, but to like, just remember, oh yeah, I can step back and get answers to my questions by watching and not having to ask those direct questions, is a really a nice reminder in our often very busy days in the classroom, to say it's okay to pause. It's okay to not well, safety wise, if there's something safety that you have to intervene with, that's something different, but it's okay to just like take a moment to observe, to see if you can get that information from those observations. And then some notes while observing. If you do have the moment to, if it allows you that you can actually like have some formal observations. Again, I know with COVID and everything going on, that's not the most realistic, but if you do, really try to like stay quiet and still. And that's really hard when you work with children. They don't always give you that opportunity. Trust me, I know. But they do, um, allow that and allow for, different times when, different teachers can be leading different things. So if you are doing a circle time, whatever that looks like for your class during COVID, maybe a different teacher leads it. So then the other teacher can get a different perspective of what's going on. Or, when you're giving lessons or whenever it is, just like making sure that you're kind of having that balance. So it's not always that you're, that you just have different opportunities to observe in different ways. I understand that we are in COVID and this is very difficult. Remember, this is also just for like general, just a general idea of everything. And remember, like when you observe, you don't have to be observing absolutely everything. You can be both big picture, like, okay, I see the whole classroom, but also small details too. Maybe, the reflection of your days, like, I don't really love how, our transition to outside's going, and I don't mean then you say, okay, I'm going to sit back and observe to see if I can be different, what can be different. But the next day, just be a little more mindful during that time of day of what's going on. And make sure that you're sharing those observations with your teachers and your program specialists and directors. So it can be on those small details of the day or about big picture. It doesn't have to be like you have to be taking everything in at the same time. We want to observe many types of works and activities. So all throughout the day, you're not just, we have our work time or our play time, but that's not the only time that we're observing to know the children's needs. Obviously, you're going to be observing all day, every day to really be gathering all the information that we need. And a really important one is we want to leave our bias behind. Sometimes we can have this idea of a child of like, oh, they always cry about this, or this is how they are. They're never going to listen. Like, and it's almost like we're giving up hope, like, oh, we figured that child out. And no matter what observations I do, that's going to be the same. And when you have that mindset, your observations are going to be very different than if you can leave that behind and really just look at the child in a clear lens to say, regardless of how they've acted before or whatever it is, I'm observing them with a clear mind to see what else I can see around them or about them to help, create more supports for them if that's needed, or so on and so forth. So no matter, if you get a new child in your classroom, you get all the feedback from the previous teacher or the parents or whatever it is, when you're trying to like do that observation and figure something out, leave the bias behind and make sure you're able to really focus on the child in the present moment. And the most important part is, what do we do with our observations? We can observe, write everything down, use the journals, use your personal notebooks, do whatever it is. But if we're not doing anything with these observations, it's pretty much a waste of time. So the first thing is you need to be sharing these observations with your team. Share them with your other teachers. If you're in the home environment, should be sharing them during your one-on-one calls. So you can be having a better understanding, and that, if you do have a team that you work with, that you guys are on the same page and really just, comparing notes. I see this, is it the same? And you can have some really nice, meaningful conversations around that. And then on top of that, after you share them, hopefully your observations will guide you to make new works for the children based on what you see in the observations, or change some different things in your environment to fit the needs. It will certainly help you with your assessments that you have to fill out and write. Want to make sure that we're meeting the child's needs. And when those needs are met, then it creates a more peaceful, calm, and enjoyable learning environment. And that is the ultimate goal. So going back to the question of what do we do with our observations, this month, we're going to share the love. Okay. It's February. I had to somehow work that in. But what I want to do this month, I said in the beginning of the call that we are going to be doing something a little different. So I want this to be a really interactive month. I think Tuesday tools are great. We use them as a foundation, and I hope that they're carried out into your classroom. But when it comes to observation, it's very specific to what's happening in your classroom. And if I'm not in your classroom, I can't share it in that actual moment. So you have great resources in your own centers, but I figured we'd open it up and have the Tuesday training tools be interactive this month. So what I mean by that is I want you to share what's happening in your classroom, and you can do that through your program specialist that can send it to me, your director, or you can simply email me and share anything. So what type of things do we want to share? Honestly, any of your observations are welcome. Nothing is not welcome. I'm thrilled to hear anything that's going on in your classroom, but I would assume that you would probably want to share some observations you had questions about. Maybe there's certain behaviors you need help with, and you need help kind of investigating or dissecting what's going on. That's what I love about observation. I feel like I'm just trying to like pull apart, like, well, what about this or what about that? You know, and you know, to get to the root of the problem. You know, I said earlier, there's no like guidebook of what to do when a child bites or pushes or all of a sudden has this really, different behavior than they did before. But what we can do with our observations is really pick them apart and just like kind of, what's going on here, and try to piece it all together to see what makes sense and get to the root of that behavior. So then we can support the actual issue, what's going on, which will then alleviate the behavior itself. So sharing those observations can help us with those behaviors. Or maybe you're really not sure what to do with your observation. Maybe you're in this, you're in this like really smooth track. Your class is pretty engaged. You don't have any, particular behaviors that are sticking out or making it hard for your class to run on the daily schedule. So you're kind of writing them down, and you're like, I don't really know what to do with these. Send them in and share that. Say, yeah, this is what I observed. What does it mean? Like, I'd be happy to help support with that. Or share a success. Maybe like you totally have your observation, schedule or routine down, and you have this really great rhythm of how like you record things and you implement different things. Share that. I love hearing successes, and I think other teachers, the whole point is that we can learn from each other. So I want to just create this platform to make it interactive and make it meaningful for your everyday classrooms and what's going on. So as we move forward, the way I see this, kind of playing out is, let's say you have a biter in your classroom. So I would ask you to send in, what your observations are, and then I'll kind of run down like, okay, if I was observing this, these are the follow-up questions I would ask. These are things I would look into. These are, X, Y, and Z, and I would kind of like play how I would work with that observation. And then with different behavioral type observations, if those are the ones coming in, which I've been hearing are more of the requests that teachers have, I'll share some proactive strategies, meaning some works that you can have in your classroom on a daily basis that will be proactively helping with any of these behaviors. So maybe you don't have a biter right now, but who knows what you'll have in a couple months, but these are works that you can always have in your classroom to help alleviate with that need of whatever it is, which again is based on the observation. And then some, intervention techniques of, if the cause of the biting is this, then I would try that. Or if you're seeing it's this, I would try that. And then some setup for like follow-up. So I'll kind of just break it down that way. But it's only going to happen if it is interactive. So I do ask that you do share some things that are, going on. And I may ask you for some follow-up questions. But again, I want it to be based on what's happening in your classrooms and have it be meaningful and purposeful for you. So let's try it. We've never done this with Tuesday Training Tools, so we'll see how it goes. And I think it'll be fun. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from you and what's going on in your classrooms and getting a glimpse into those so important observations that should be happening each and every day. If you have any questions, please reach out to your program specialist or director, or like I always say, reach out directly to me. I love getting emails from teachers with any type of questions. Always happy to help. And I look forward to your responses. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Stay safe from the snow and stay warm. And I will see you next week. Bye, everyone.